Hi, my name is Justin, and I am the games director behind the top-down action game Sentinel Star. The game revolves around the protagonist Nyx, who has been prophesied to become a Sentinel, the defender of the stars. The Inquisitor, a mysterious man with an army at his control, learns of this prophecy and finds Nyx, then trains him to become a true warrior. After years of training, Nyx is sent on his first mission to raid an alien planet, but after being unable to kill the innocent natives, he instead flees from the army and plots to rebel against his once comrades. Now a renegade, he has to save those unable to do so themselves and become a sentinel. As the game's director for the project, I on one hand am in charge of the story, the mechanics, and the overall look and feel of the game, while on the other hand, I am also in charge of creating a budget sheet, the production schedule, and making sure that everyone was up to date with all the progress and was working productively on set tasks. The game cycle started with the pre-production, and to be more precise, with secondary research. We started by looking at games that either had a similar setting or mechanics to what we wanted to create. That's how we came across Hyperlight Drifter. A popular top-down action game, it is probably the biggest piece of influence we used. Everything from the art style to the combat system has an influence on our own game, and the similarities are clear. I feel like this was the best piece of research we did, as the work we did based on these influences didn't seem to change over the production cycle. This is further reinforced by the feedback we received from various QA tests, where the game was praised for its combat and visual style multiple times. Once we had gathered enough secondary research, we started conducting primary research ourselves. We started off by creating a survey that allowed us to gather some basic idea of what our audience liked, which helped us refine the game. To get more qualitative feedback, we created a questionnaire which asks more insightful questions that had a bigger impact on the game, such as what specific elements made the game more interesting. Finally, we conducted 3 focus groups, which allowed us to gather more insightful responses to various questions we had about the game, such as if they liked Nyx and what they would change. This allowed us to shape our games closer to what people wanted to see from it. At the very end of the pre-production cycle, we pitched our idea to a panel of professional video game designers. This allowed us to get very insightful feedback, which helped us narrow down and get a clear picture of the game we were creating. Working on this project as a team was really good. Not only did it allow us to work on separate pieces of work at the same time, we could focus on our strong points. Because we had multiple people working together, problems that came up were much easier and took less time to solve. Now that we've worked as a team for quite some time, we've learned and established a lot of things to help us be productive, like having a daily briefing which allows us to stay on top of what everyone is working. Maintaining a production schedule allows us to keep track on various deadlines to make sure that content is being created productively and efficiently. When it came to creating the visuals for the game, I wanted the game to look retro by using pixel art and a small palette. Not only because my favorite games are Metroid Fusion and Castlevania Ray of Sorrow, or that pixel art looks cool, but also because of the challenges and limitations that come with having a small canvas and only 10 colors. You need to spend a lot of time experimenting and exploring these concepts, which push the game even further. When it came to making the art assets, we worked with a small program called Sprite, which is literally made only for pixel art, which means it has a lot of features to help us make assets efficiently. One of the assets that I got to create was the palette for the game, and while it may seem simple, these 10 colors have to work on a linear scale, but also together. I learned a lot about hue shifting and color theory in general. One of the biggest problems we faced was having only 10 colors to work with, meaning that objects used to blend in with the background, and our visual artist would often ask me if it was okay to add just a few more colors. My response was always no. Instead, I would sit down with her and we would come up with different solutions to the problem. The way we tackled the whole problem with objects blending in was by using an outline. It was a simple solution to what at first seemed to be a complex problem. I guess that's the beauty of limitations. They make you look at a problem from a different angle and push yourself to overcome the problem. Just like with the visuals, I wanted the audio to feel retro. I wanted to go for a chiptune or 8-bit music that would still give off a sci-fi feel. And while we weren't able to carry it out, we still did end up doing a good job when it came to music. A lot of the music for our games came from the music students, which was really great since we got to collaborate with students that have been solely practicing music, while they got to experiment with our briefs. The SFX or music that we did end up creating ourselves was made either in Adobe Audition, Boss Casio, which is a small chiptune digital audio workstation, or BFXR, which is a small program to create small 8-bit sounds. The Foley effects for the game were recorded using industry standard equipment provided to us from the college. One of the problems that we faced was creating interactive music that changes as you play the game. To tackle this problem, we used Fmod, which gave us more control over the SFX and the music in our game, allowing us to use parameters and triggers to control the sound. This gave us a lot of freedom to experiment with the music in our game. The biggest thing that I learned from helping out with the music is that music tends to be a very, if not the most important aspect of games, and a huge focus should go into perfecting them. When it came to the various mechanics of the game, I wanted the game to be quite simple and fast-paced, while also being quite challenging. I wanted the player to find out how mechanics worked and how they interacted with the world, rather than having a textbook explain it to them. I did a lot of work when it came to both designing and implementing the various mechanics for the game. The project was scripted in Visual Studio, which is a superior IDE to Mono develop. Creating mechanics worked as a loop. We would start with the basic idea for a mechanic that we would like to implement. We would then explore this idea and see if I can improve it. Once we had the mechanic, we would start prototyping it into the game, and we would test it to see if it would fit into the game as a whole. If it worked out in the end, we would finish developing it, and then we would polish it to make sure it properly worked. On the other hand, if it doesn't work out, we would begin the loop from the beginning. Throughout the production, we came across a multiple of different problems that we had to tackle. The biggest one for me personally was probably creating the tutorial sequence. I had to write a lot of coroutines for the different actions, like moving the AI, waiting for you to approach a position, but the most complex was getting him to talk. I ended up writing a whole text engine with its own syntax, which allowed the text to be multicolored and interactable. Another problem was the enemy AI, which I wanted to be quite complex. I spent a lot of time learning and implementing coroutines that worked like states, managing what the enemy was doing. A lot of debugging, and at some points just trial and error was involved in getting the AI to work, but it made the game a lot better in the end. The biggest lesson I learned from programming the game is making sure that every programmer is on the same page so that everyone is being productive. Given another week to work on the game, I'd probably add in the boss battle since that was a big selling point, but we chose to scrap it since it would have taken too much time that we did end up spending working on a multitude of other mechanics, like the tutorial, which had a higher priority. This has been Justin, the game's director for Sentinel Star. Hope you enjoyed the game, and thanks for listening.